It's week 5. God bless. Fantasy football is back on Sunday. We are prepping your lineup before noon kickoff. It's Sausha Durkan, Andrew Rogers back with you. We're happy to have you. There are many things a man can do with his time, but none are better than this. We love fantasy football on this show, and there's plenty to talk about. Sausha, you must be pretty tired, though, because last night, or I would say most of yesterday, you were participating in a relay run from one city to another.
Yes. I was up at 4 a.m., and I didn't get home until almost 9 o'clock. So, yeah, a little tired. Knees are a little sore. So I picked one like and one hate from each category today, but I did do my research and I'm here. So that's what matters.
These cities aren't close to each other. Despite what it looks like on a U.S. map, Lincoln and Omaha are further apart than people think.
It was 78 total miles. We had 8 runners. I ran 10 of those 78 yesterday. So yeah, it was fun. It's so much fun, but I am definitely very tired today.
So, and I know we're going to get a little off track here, but I just want to get I want to kind of gauge what you actually did. Were you running on the highway, like the shoulder of the highway?
There's it's a lot of back roads, a lot of gravel roads. Some of it's paved, some of it isn't. And both of my sections were literally, my first one was up a hill, down a hill, up a hill, down a hill for most of it. That really sucked. I didn't like it. And then when the wind picked up, it always sucks when you're running into the wind, but it's fun. I swear it's fun.
It didn't sound very fun based on how you just described it. I think I had more fun sitting on my couch watching college football. I think that was a lot more fun. But you got a workout in. I did not. So you beat me in that category.
I won't be doing anything today after this.
Yeah, just resting, right?
Yes.
And eating.
Yes.
And trying to get your body back up to speed. No, well, at least it was safer than running on the shoulder of the highway. I just didn't really know how that worked. I feel like a straight shot is the best way to do it, but I guess the bobbing and weaving back roads is definitely the play when it comes to probably. How many runners were there? Like hundreds?
Thousands. There were
573
total teams of at least 6 runners. So yeah. And God, I do have to brag really quick before we actually answer some fantasy football questions. Out of those 573 teams, we finished 79th. So
wow.
Shouts out to our team.
Too bad you couldn't finish 10 spots higher. That would have been even better.
Nice.
Thanks. Thanks. Let's get into some week 5 storylines before Sausha falls asleep because of how tired she is. Did your alarm clock go off? It's an 8:30 start again. Packers, Giants on TV. Of course, right now, that game will wind down before the noon kickoff. But, the Packers were heavy favorites in this game. I believe they were 8-point favorites coming in. So hopefully you had your lineup set. I don't believe there were any major injury issues coming in. I remember checking at 6:30 this morning, and Daniel Jones was cleared off of there. He was really the only question mark that would have affected most fantasy lineups. But aside from that, most, if not everybody, played. A.J. Dillon, I think, was cleared too. He was dealing with an injury this past week. So even if you didn't wake up in time for this game, like last week when Alvin Kamara didn't play, everybody played in this Packers game, so no need to really fret about that too much. Moving on, the Jets have lost 12 straight divisional games. Let's see if they make it a 13th, and it would be interesting because of a Teddy Bridgewater stat that I will provide here in the next few minutes. It's also Kenny Pickett time in Pittsburgh. The Falcons are 4-0 against the spread and are big underdogs against Tampa this week. That's +10. You can grab them at. The line opened at +9. Wow. The Falcons, funny thing, Sausha, never started 5-0.
Really?
Never. Against the spread.
Did not know. Oh, okay.
Yeah, against the spread.
I was like, what?
Sorry. That's what I was referring to there. But it's kind of like a kryptonite moment for them because they're facing Tom Brady, and he's 10-0 against the Falcons. And that's just in actual games.
Right.
So I doubt they cover this week. I really think TB can cover by 10, if not more. No Michael Thomas, no Jameis Winston today. Week 5 is the third time in 33 total games the Jags will be favored against the Texans. They lost by 14-plus points in the previous 2 meetings. Jacksonville doesn't shape up well against Houston. However, this Jacksonville team this year is better than this Houston team. So a win is in the making for the Jaguars. Doug Peterson has done a phenomenal job with that group. So looking forward to that matchup. The Bears average just 97.5 passing yards per game. That's my team. Peep the poll over. Sasha, if you didn't know, every other NFL team averages at least 139 yards. So speaking of running, you did a lot of running yesterday. That's what the Bears will be doing today.
Nice. I like the tie in there.
Hey, thank you. And David Montgomery has the potential to be back. Of course, he's a game time call. I don't know if it's really overly smart to play him this week. You might as well sit him. Khalil Herbert can suffice against the Vikings. But if you can get D-Mount back in there, Bears have the best chance of winning then. So we'll see what they end up doing. I would be shocked if Eberflus didn't play him, but I think actually the smart play for at least the rest of this season and that man's health is to, holy cow, did you see the lights just go off?
I did.
Oh, no. Hold on. I'm stepping away.
The universe isn't into whatever you're about to say, sir.
It did not like me there. It just turned, they were like, no, Andrew, stop talking. Stop talking. I'm in a room with censored lights, and I haven't moved from my chair in a long period of time.
To start using your hands more.
I'm going to have to do well. And do I have to? This is going to be a very dumb question, but do I have to like motion toward the light switch, or do I just have to make motion in the room?
Just gesticulate randomly.
Yeah, I'll just throw things across the room against the wall next time that happens. Moving on. Thank goodness we had that brief stoppage. It was like the blackout in the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
The Ravens are going to win today now. They're going to win on Sunday Night Football just because of that. Now, the Cardinals have lost 7 straight home games, which is the longest streak in the NFL. Plus, Cooper Rush is the currently the only undefeated quarterback against the spread, and the first Cowboys quarterback to start his career 4-0. Does that mean Cooper Rush is the best quarterback in Cowboys history? Maybe.
I think a couple other quarterbacks might want to have a word with you about that one.
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't think they did not have a good quarterback that started with Troy. And they also didn't have one that was also 4 letters in Tony.
Yeah.
But you know what? Cooper Rush.
You know what? His name doesn't start with a T. I don't know how successful he's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and it has more than 4 letters.
Yes. I don't know.
Dak Prescott.
Gamble.
Watch out. Watch out. No, we're only kidding.
Kidding.
Joke. Cooper Rush didn't even make the quarterback rankings this week, so nobody freak out. Now let's move into our quarterback favorites this week. I'm going to start right here. Joe Burrow. 2 of his best fantasy performances last year were against the Ravens. This, of course, Sunday Night Football. I know Burrow hasn't met his season expectations just yet, but here's his blow-up game. He had 38.1 fantasy points in the 41-21 Ravens win back in, I think, week 15, week 16 last year. I can't remember what the official week was. He's also put up over 20 fantasy points in back-to-back weeks this year. The Ravens so far this season have allowed 23.15 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. That's the 4th most in the NFL. And that includes allowing the most passing yards. Yeah. And here's why that's important. Because last year in 2 matchups against the Ravens, Joe Burrow accumulated 1,000 passing yards in those 2 games. That's insane.
Oh, wow. You realize so many.
And I know Joe Burrow is probably like an, Andrew, obvious play. And I have a few of those mixed in. Normally, I'm the guy that's like, hey, what streamer can I use this week? What's maybe a low-end running back that you believe is going to have a big week? That's where I tend to lean when we have these shows. But I had to say that this week because Joe Burrow has remained on a lot of people's benches because they've been playing Aaron Rodgers instead. Or they've been playing Kyler Murray instead. Yeah, exactly. So if you have Joe Burrow this week and you're resting on, do I start him? Do I not? This is the week that you say yes to Joe Burrow.
Really?
Yes.
Because I have Joe and I have had him on my bench because I've been starting Kyler Murray. And you know who I actually hate this week? Kyler Murray.
There it is. Let's skip to hate. Go talk about Kyler Murray.
I don't like Kyler Murray this week. I understand he's averaging 46 pass attempts and a TD in his last 3 games. So it's rare that you would sit him for a Joe Burrow in this instance. But this week they're playing against Philadelphia, and he may struggle to get rolling against the defense that's allowing the 8th fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this week. So I don't like Kyler Murray.
The Eagles are the most complete team in the NFL too. I remember after week 1, I got on this show and I said, there's no way this team has any Super Bowl hopes. This team is not that good. I just saw them play in week 1. After 1 week, of course, I can understand how the rest of the season
the summation of the whole season,
right?
By week 1.
If you don't win week 1 or if you don't perform in week 1, you're not winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like you can't get better after week 1. So as we've moved on, though, Andrew was proven wrong by this Eagles team. They are easily the most complete team in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Easily.
I'm not going to fight you on that one.
And, most people out there are probably like, oh, no, the Bills are the most complete team. And, oh, no, the Chiefs, they're going to win the Super Bowl. And no, the Eagles are the most complete team when it comes to weapons on the outside, one of the best playing quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and that defense is arguably just as standout-ish as the Bills. In my opinion, Eagles are the best team in the NFL.
I think people might fight you on best team in the NFL, but I'm not going to fight you on most complete because I agree with you there.
Yep, I'm gonna go out on that.
I'm dying on that hill.
I'm going on that limb of they are the best team right now in the NFL. Listen to my words. Now I'm going to stick away from hate here. I'm going to go back to my likes, and then I'll jump into the hate category once we hear who Sasha last likes. But I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater here as my second favorite quarterback this week. And as I alluded to, here's what I wanted to tell you about Teddy Bridgewater, who's facing the Jets this week. Bridgewater is 43-21 against the spread. He's also 24-6 against the spread when playing on the road. Wow. That's pretty good.
That is
pretty
not
good.
Bad.
He's the 5th most profitable quarterback in a group that's led by Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees. He falls 5th after those 4 guys when it comes to that stat line right there. Just that one stat line. He is in the top 5. Okay. I'll jump on the Bridgewater train. I'll get in my boat. I'll hop on the water. We'll go under the bridge, right? The Jets defense has given up 25.3 points per game to quarterbacks this year as well. That is the 6th most in the league. Plus, Mike McDaniel said earlier this week that the offense will not change with Teddy Bridgewater in the commander spot. They won't. They will not. He will command this offense like Tua commanded it weeks before. They won't change it. They will remain pass heavy because they have the options to do that. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, questionable today. We'll see how they make it through warmups. But as of right now, those 2 guys are going to be Teddy Bridgewater's best friends, and they will cover. They will win, and Teddy Bridgewater will ball out on the road in New York.
All right. And
my last one. Let me do one more, and then we'll get into yours. I wonder if you have this guy on your list because he was one of your favorite waiver ads. Jared Goff.
Nope.
Jared Goff. Here's why. The Lions are forced to score a ton of points because their defense looks like a kid walking through a haunted house every Sunday. You just can't find them anywhere. They're hiding behind different attractions inside of that haunted house. That defense is all over the place, and because of that, Jared Goff is now forced to throw the football way more than he probably should in an NFL game just to keep trying to score as the game goes on. The Pats defense has allowed the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks as well. That's about 20.45 points. Jared Goff will do what he does best and what we've seen the past 4 weeks, and that is throw the football. What does throwing the football mean for you starting Jared Goff in your fantasy lineup this week? That means he's going to have a lot of opportunities to pass for touchdowns and to pass for yards. That's it. My top 3 quarterbacks this week.
I like it. This is fairly obvious, but really like Josh Allen this week. He's thrown for at least 297 yards and 2 touchdowns in all but one game this entire season. And today the Bills are playing the Steelers defense that's allowed 22.5 points per game all season long. So I feel like it's a little obvious, but I was like, let's go with Josh Allen this week.
Well, and there's no shot that Kenny Pickett excels against this Bills defense. So because of that, there's not a lot of pressure on Josh Allen to be great like there was last week against the Ravens. So he's set up in a good matchup to be relaxed, to be calm, cool, collected, and he'll ball out. There's no doubt that Josh Allen will continue to ball day in and day out. He can make a run for best team in the NFL.
Best team.
Go Eagles. I can't believe I said that.
I know.
I'm a Bears fan, and I'm like, oh, but the Eagles. Yeah, let's just go with another NFC team. Yeah, great. Andrew, why couldn't you just pick an AFC team? Here's who I hate this week. And he was one of my favorite waiver ads of the week. Geno Smith.
Oh.
He was actually one of the hottest waiver ads of the week, and rightfully so. He's been balling out. He really has. Last week, Seattle and Detroit combined for about 93 points, I think it was. 93? That may be right on the nose. 48 to 45? Yeah, that's right on the nose. And Geno produced 31 fantasy points for those that started him. Yeah, good job if you guys started Geno Smith. Don't do it this week. I'm going to wave the finger. No. The Saints defense has limited quarterbacks to just 13.2 fantasy points per game. That is the 8th fewest in the NFL. If you see who the Saints have played against this season, most, if not all, quarterbacks are better and highly touted than Geno Smith. That is why I'm saying relax. Put him on your bench.
Yes.
Find somebody new.
Don't get rid of him. Just bench him.
Just bench him this week because we know Geno Smith has been crazy this year. He's gone off in ways that I could have never predicted. When they made the trade, when Russell Wilson went to Denver and they got Drew Lock, I thought for sure Drew Lock was going to be the starter in Seattle. Obviously, Pete Carroll had other plans, and he knows more than me. And, that trade probably worked out for the Seahawks. Yeah. You don't have to pay $250 million to extend a guy that can't even find KJ Hamler wide open on a slant route because all you do is look left and you forget that, I can turn my neck to the right side. Weird. That reaction, by the way, by KJ Hamler on Thursday Night Football just shows that Russell Wilson has no control over that locker room because most of the time you would see a receiver react like in disgust, but he wouldn't slam his helmet down. He wouldn't do he sees that either favoritism is being done, like I can only throw to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, or Russell is not stepping up as a leader in the way that he was in Seattle.
And the worst thing that could possibly happen, especially I think to a quarterback, is to lose the locker room. The second you lose the locker room, you're probably going to lose your job soon. It's your starting job, I should say. Maybe.
And shame on the Broncos, right? Shame on you. You have to really, really do some interventing. Is that a word? You need an intervention, but I didn't know if in my sentence, interventing was the only thing that made sense. Okay. I don't know if that's a word. I could have just made up a word, but they need to have an intervention with Russell Wilson and the rest of that offense. And you know what? I don't know if confession needs to take place. I don't know what has to be done. Something needs to be done because you cannot show up on a primetime football game as a clear favorite. You have the better team in all areas of the game and not score a touchdown. You can't do that. That's just can't. You can't. I know Javonte Williams wasn't playing, but Javonte Williams isn't Mr. Touchdown this year. He's not. Like did he score a touchdown this year before he went out? I don't think he did. So it's not like he was Mr. Impactful and that's why you guys didn't get into the end zone. You just can't move the football.
Which is a little befuddling.
Something has to take place. Some intervention needs to take place a sit-down meeting with a bunch of people. Maybe you guys have a potluck dinner. I don't care. Just do something.
Just figure it out.
Because you had such high hopes in the AFC West, and where have those gone? Out the window.
They're done.
See ya. Nobody is taking the Broncos seriously this year. Nor should you. You're right. Nor should you. All right, let's move on to our running backs this week. I love James Robinson. Now, Robinson put me in pain last week. So after being the only leg of my NFL parlay that did not hit, thank you, James Robinson, all I needed was 51 rushing yards. That's all I needed, Sasha. He's had over 60 every week otherwise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Seemed pretty easy. Now, because I didn't bet on him this week, he'll go off. So play James Robinson. So he had 8 carries, no targets. He took 46% of the snaps in week 4. The weather didn't help, but I'm not using that as an excuse here, because when there are rainy conditions, you should be running the football.
Right. Yes.
Except the turnover issues with Trevor Lawrence, just, oh my gosh, it made me want to stab my eyes out with forks. He had 1 pick and 4 fumbles. Yeah. He lost 4 fumbles. I know it's wet, but come on, man.
Have you never played in rain before in your life ever?
He played football in Georgia.
Right.
It rains there all the time.
That's what I'm saying.
So the Jaguars had a 14-0 lead. That turned into a 29-21 loss. That 14-0 lead, guess what, was in the first quarter. They outscored the Eagles in the first quarter, 14-0. And then what happened? Well, Trevor Lawrence happened. And then James Robinson didn't put up the numbers, and I lost another bet yet again by 1 leg. Man, I'm down. It's hard. It's hard to be me. Houston has allowed the most fantasy points per game. Now we're back to Jacksonville, Houston. Sorry that I just kind of went off on my own there.
A tangent.
Houston has allowed the most fantasy points per game. That's about 32.78, which is unbelievable. And the most rushing yards at 564. The second most rushing touchdowns with 5. And the 8th most receiving yards. That's 157. 2 running backs. We saw Austin Ekeler torch this defense last week. So why not James Robinson time?
All right. I dig it. You know who I actually like this week? Since you just mentioned him?
Uh-oh.
Austin Ekeler.
Hey, look at this. See, we're going off of each other nice and easy.
Real good today. Last week, Ekeler had an awesome week. Obviously, just mentioned that with over 100 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns. He'll likely have another good outing against the Browns, who's given up 6 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 games. So that's why I picked Austin.
Austin is the man. And plus, he finally showed up last week.
Yeah.
It was a rough 3 weeks for fantasy owners. So hopefully you didn't sell low because you wanted to get rid of him on your team. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I tried to buy high.
I was like, is that you again?
No, nobody took my deal for Austin Ekeler. Sad. I know. It's sad. I thought I offered some pretty good deals, but you know what? It is what it is. Speaking of weird deals, so I play in a dynasty football league. So that means, your team carries over season after season, and then you just draft rookies. So somebody had Javonte Williams in one of my leagues, and he went down with the ACL, out for the year. Yeah. Well, he needed a running back badly, and he was sending that in our group text numerous times. And I'm like, I have a lot of running back depth on my team. On my bench, I have Breece Hall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, David Montgomery right now. And I'm like, I could afford to get rid of some people in order to grab a Javonte for the future. So I offered up David Montgomery, and this is a point per rush league. So that's why running backs are so vital to have. I offered up David Montgomery, which is hard for me to do as a Bears fan, but it's a guy that's owned by 97, 98% of every league year in and year out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire I threw in that trade as well, who's had an awesome year so far. And then I added in Jahan Dotson, a rookie receiver, over in Washington. And I wanted Javonte and Drake London in return. I thought that was a good place to start. It's not like I expected him to hit the accept button right away. Because, that's not really how deals work. I was trying to help his team, but at the same time, help my team and building for the future. But, more often than not, the first deal that gets sent is never accepted.
Right.
So I, sure enough, received a counteroffer like right away. And I was a little shocked because he normally takes a little while. And he sent me Javonte Williams and Rashad Bateman for Dameon Pierce. That's what he countered with. So naturally, I hit the accept button.
Yeah.
Right? You should have seen the texts going through our group chat. I'm gonna read them. They were awesome.
Oh boy.
I have the Packers game pulled up currently. Let's. I want to. Because everybody is like, we don't have vetoes in this league because our rule is everybody's been playing fantasy football for 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you're dumb enough to accept a trade or offer a trade that you think is best for you, then, you shouldn't have the league to save you.
Right.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's how we kind of look at it. All right. So I'm going to scroll down to these and, all right, here we go. First text, trade rape 2.0 question mark. There is no way that is a real trade. ... So effing dumb. Do we put vetoing back in the league? Laughing face emoji. I would 1,000,000% veto that. For real. I don't even understand how that could look acceptable. As if the league wasn't already top heavy. So all of those texts had taken place. And then I just sent, that trade was sent to me. And all I got was one laughing face emoji. And then later on, it was my butthole hurts and Jim Carrey, I think. Was he in Dumb and Dumber?
Yes.
It was his gif from Dumb and Dumber about to like puke.
Oh,
you
yeah.
Remember that? I haven't seen Dumb and Dumber in so long, so apologize to those movie fanatics out there.
I know the GIF you're referring to. Yes.
Yes. So it's GIF, by the way. It's not GIF.
Oh, we don't have time to get into that and fight about that
today
because you're wrong.
No, it's not.
GIF.
It is absolutely GIF. He named it after the peanut butter.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
It.
Look it up.
It's not. I'm not doing that. I'm so angry right now. It is GIF.
You're right.
GIF. No.
It is GIF.
What has just happened? I'm so tired. It's time to
go.
It's
yes.
GIF.
All right. That's the end of the show. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Okay.
All right.
Who do you hate this week for
back to fantasy football? I do not like Ezekiel Elliott this week, believe it or not.
Okay.
And the reason for that is the volume is there, but his fantasy production is not.
Mm-hmm.
And when you add those two things together, it equals no bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno. He's only eclipsed 8.1 fantasy points in a standard league in one game thus far. Mm-hmm. And that still only reached 13.5 thanks to a touchdown the week that he got over that 8.1 mark. He's averaging only 3.8 yards per carry, which in the NFL, that is atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
It won't get any better against the Rams this week, who allow just 93.7 rushing yards per game and the fewest fantasy points to running backs. The only way he's relevant is by scoring a touchdown. And he's only scored one touchdown. So I don't like the buy-in for Zeke this week.
Yeah, you're right. I don't like Damien Harris. He's scored 18 times since the beginning of last season total for the Patriots. However, this week, New England's facing a Lions defense that's not really great against the run, but I feel like the Patriots are super conservative on offense. And for whatever unexplainable reason, I just don't have a great feeling about this game. Sometimes you got to go with your gut.
I love that you said that because I actually really like Damien Harris this week. And the reason for that is you just gave a lot of stats that trend in the right direction for likes on this show. Everything that you said was that, except for my gut reaction is don't play him.
That's just how it is. And I'm a Patriots fan.
You know what? You're a mom, right?
Yeah.
So moms have some crazy intuition sometimes. I get it. I trust my mom.
Specifically watching this player this weekend in fantasy because I want also to be right and you to be wrong.
Well, Damien Harris. So I'm just going to reiterate what Sasha just said. The Lions cough up rushing yards week in and week out. Rashad Penny, even though he didn't start off very strong last week, he ended with 17, 151, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Harris has also been Mr. Reliable because of those 18 touchdowns since last season, like she had just stated. Over the course of 3 weeks, he went for 71, 41, and 86, which that's where I agree with Sausha. She brought up a great point by saying how conservative that New England offense plays.
It's like shocking.
So I will be with you on that, Mark, because he could only end up with 41 rushing yards in this matchup, but he could also end up with 90 plus.
1,000.
So it could easily be one way or the other. But because of how poor the Lions rushing defense is, that's why I like Damien Harris this week. Just because they've given up over 100 yards per game already this season, and he's an end zone hound. So if you're looking for fantasy production in any sort of league, he may only touch the ball 13 times. But if he goes for even 50 yards and a touchdown, it's kind of a productive week, if you ask me. I actually have him starting in a DFS lineup.
I just have, like, for whatever reason, just a crappy ick feeling about how New England's going to play today.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I've been watching them my whole life. Yeah. So they just do that sometimes.
Is it a road game or a home game for New England?
I believe they are at home.
Maybe. New England's at home?
I think so.
How's the weather in New England? Do we know?
I just had that pulled up. Let me see here. It's supposed to be nice.
Hear me typing here.
60 degrees.
Okay.
38% humidity, 11-mile wind speed.
Look, Lions play in a dome. Anything can happen when you play outside.
That's true. That's true.
My last one, I want to add one more, and then we'll move on to wide receivers. I like Josh Jacobs on Monday night. Josh Jacobs is coming off a career best 28, 144, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 5 for 31 against the Denver Broncos. I apologize if you just heard me ding there. That was our producer, Cam Broham, checking in with us. He had 35 fantasy points, Sausha. Did you know that? 35 last week. Wow. That's a lot of fantasy points for a running back. Even more enticing, he has 11 targets in his last 2 games, with at least 5 in each of those 2 games. It's apparent the Raiders will look to carry over those numbers this week against the Chiefs. Hunter Renfrow is back. Devontae Adams, of course, there. Darren Waller, there's weapons. But you're not going to just run him like a dog against the Broncos and then not do the same thing against the Chiefs, who allowed 27.65 fantasy points to running backs this year, which is 5th most in the league. So keep that in mind when you want to add Josh Jacobs into your lineups. He is an easy RB2 play for me this week. He may even squeak into the RB1 argument. And that may be bold because I'm only basing it off of last week. But with everything that I see, all the stats that come with it, it's easy for me to make that assumption going into Monday Night Football.
I dig it. I'm not going to fight you on that one.
Thanks. Yeah.
For once.
I feel like we say dig it too and then start singing holes on this show every now and then. Let's go into wide receivers. Again, I'm going to start off here. Usually I'm not Mr. Talk about the guy, of course, who normally is in every lineup every single week, no matter what. But since I did it once with Joe Burrow, I might as well do it with Jamar Chase too, right? As long as I stick with Cincinnati, that's okay. Jamar Chase has seen at least 9 targets in all but 1 game this season, and in tandem with the information about Joe Burrow, Chase is someone who historically, even though it's a short history, has produced against Baltimore. In both matchups last year, he had 200 receiving yard performances. That is just a chin dropper, mouth dropper. 4 touchdowns, 4 total TDs in those matchups. 26.1 and the most recent 44.6 were his 2 fantasy scores from both of those games against Baltimore. Plus, Jamar Chase hasn't been what we expected him to be just yet. And I know people had very high expectations for the kid. He will get back to Jamar Chase contributions, but this is his get right game. And I think against a Baltimore secondary that isn't the strongest this year, this is where Jamar Chase says, hey, I'm good. I mean it.
Yeah. I have another obvious player for the person I liked this week. He's still listed as questionable, but I think he's going to play. That's why I put Tyreek Hill on here. He's expected to play today. He was in a couple of limited practices at the end of the week, and since that's the case, you got to start him this week. Period. It's Tyreek Hill, and they're playing the Jets. They're playing the Jets.
He's a 5-star play.
Yeah.
5-star play. Even if Sauce Gardner is shading that direction, he is a 5-star play. Tyreek Hill is just known for dusting anybody that matches up against him. He's that good.
Yeah.
He's just that good. And when you're that good, you can do whatever you want, right? Hey,
okay.
You know who I like? Somebody that you've had on your team for a little while now, Curtis Samuel this week. There is no Jahan Dotson. He is out. The Titans are the 30th worst team in the NFL when it comes to defending the pass. Time for Curtis Samuel to be a menace, right? It's time. The Titans have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. Tennessee also allowed the 3rd most receiving yards, and that's tied for the 2nd most touchdowns as well at that position. He led Washington in these 5 weeks of football in 4 straight weeks in targets. You would think Scary Terry would be that guy.
Right.
No, it's Curtis Samuel. Even with Jahan Dotson on the field, Logan Thomas on the field, it's Curtis Samuel. And it's Curtis Samuel time once again against Tennessee.
Okay.
Also, DK Metcalf's about to have a big game. He is going to go off.
I almost put him on my list here.
Thank God it would have been on the like instead of the hate, or else I would have heard something here in a sec. Now, they are playing the New Orleans Saints, but the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal for DK Metcalf. He's averaged 100-plus receiving yards. Could see some Marshawn Lattimore, but that's no reason to sit DK this week. 22 targets over those 2 weeks and 21-plus fantasy points last week. That's awesome. The Saints have allowed 34.95 fantasy points per game to wide receivers. He saw a good amount of downfield work against the Lions, but of course, in a shootout like that it's expected. Now, retract back to him being more of a possession receiver this week. He's going to be somebody that Geno Smith looks for on shorter throws instead of deeper balls. Tyler Lockett will probably be that guy this week. So in PPR formats, that's what makes DK so valuable.
Yeah. Who do you hate this week?
Who do I hate this week? It's a New York Jet. We were talking about Tyreek Hill. I'm going to go on the other side of the football and say Elijah Moore. I don't like Elijah this week. It's not to say I just don't like Elijah or the name Elijah. Elijah is a very biblical name, right? But
sure.
I'm looking at Elijah Moore, and I'm thinking about last year. And when Zach Wilson played, he peppered Elijah Moore. He also liked to give Elijah Moore some red zone targets. But after seeing 1 week of Zach Wilson back, he didn't show the same love to Elijah Moore. And he's yet to reach 55 yards in a game this season, and that's enough for me to sit him this week. Even against the 5th highest defense, which is Miami, when it comes to passing yards allowed. In week 4, he was 3rd in the order for targets among Jets receivers, plus Breece Hall and Tyler Conklin. Tyler Conklin saw more value. He's just too unreliable at this point. And until he puts up double-digit fantasy numbers, he will not start in any of my leagues.
All right. You might throw something at me. I got Christian Kirk on here. I understand that he's averaging 9 targets a game, but Jacksonville's facing Houston's defense that's allowed some of the fewest catches to receivers, 44, and it's tied for fewest TDs allowed to receivers.
Did you say TDs?
Yes.
TDs?
Touchdowns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fewest TDs allowed to receivers. 1.
TDs.
1.
If you say TDs 5 times fast, it starts to sound like something different.
I got you. Touchdowns. Fewest touchdowns. 1.
I said that on the last show and you weren't on there, so I had to bring it up this time for you to hear my joke, because unless I get some good laughs about that, because Cam and I are children. So we're laughing about anything and everything, but I need to get some reaction out of you for me to really feel good about myself. So,
okay.
there you go. Thanks for the smile. Thanks for the smile. I appreciate that. Let's go on to tight ends. And don't worry, we'll get into your start sit questions. We've had a lot come through on social media. So if we don't get to all of them, we apologize. But, obviously keep sending those in as we head toward noon kickoff. Tight ends, Mark Andrews is my number one.
Okay.
Again, I said at the beginning of the show, Mark Andrews, of course, is the guy that you start every single week, no matter what. But this week in particular, I wanted to talk about Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch because they're going to need Marky Mark with no Rashad Bateman. He is out this week for Baltimore. Now, Andrews leads the Ravens in targets, receiving yards. Got to come closer to the mic, receiving yards, and touchdowns. So expect another big week from him. This is usually a high-scoring game, at least what we saw based on last year's numbers. Cincy's defense has allowed over 60 receiving yards per game to tight ends this season. That's the 8th worst in the NFL. Don't freak out about his low numbers last week. He was playing the Bills. That's enough. I don't have to say anything more there. Enough said. Pay more attention to his 22 catches and 3 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks of football.
All right.
Who do you like?
I like Darren Waller. I know that he's been quiet in Vegas, and I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but I think that you're probably going to find him in the end zone this week against Kansas City because they've given up quite a few touchdowns to tight ends in their last few games. So why not?
I like it. Give me that. I have Darren Waller in 2 leagues. Come on. I love it.
Sweet.
I love it. He didn't make my list, but I'm happy he made yours.
Sweet.
I also like Dallas Goedert this week. The Eagles. Woo! The Eagles. Yes.
This is now an Eagles podcast.
It is. They are the most complete team in the NFL. They are. Which actually is a double-edged sword when it comes to fantasy because that just means when you have players from that team, you never really know who's going to go off each week. When you don't have a very complete team, like a complete NFL team, say the Lions, for example, you see Amon-Ra St. Brown go off almost every week that he plays. But the Lions just don't win games. So that's like where I get to that double-edged sword thing with Dallas Goedert. Now, Goddard, yes, he's losing out on volume, but here's what separates him from other players at his position or even just any position in the NFL with how crowded that Eagles team is when it comes to talent. He's managed to score at least 9 fantasy points in every game and double-digit points in 3 straight games. He also gets Arizona's defense, who we talk about almost every week when it comes to guarding the tight end position. They are the team that gives up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to that position, the 2nd most yards, and 4th most touchdowns. That is just such an easy play every week to throw a tight end against that team. What just happened over there?
My dog is barking, and so I'm trying to
You're trying to say, shut up.
Yes, but he's outside.
Okay, because I couldn't hear him, so I was just curious.
Okay, good.
I thought somebody walked in and just said something or was making something disgusting in your kitchen, and you just gave that
dog.
Face. Yeah, it's the dog. Okay, we get it. Dogs are great though. We love dogs.
They are.
My last one. Here we go. Tyler Higbee. He'll be on my list every week until the end of the season, barring any injury. He's put up 61 yards in 3 Rams games this year so far. That should remain a solid fantasy play week after week. The Cowboys give up the 5th fewest to tight ends, but Matt Stafford will find ways to force the football to him. If you watch the Rams, oh, look, I see somebody in the background.
That's nice. My husband. I'm recording a podcast.
Can you tell him to change his sweatshirt to a blue sweatshirt?
No,
just turn around and just say that.
Penguins household here.
Just one time. Just turn around and say, you got to put on a blue sweatshirt.
No, I won't be doing that.
Hey, if Damien Harris goes off this week, will you wear a blue sweatshirt?
No, I won't.
What kind of deal can I, what kind of bet can we make in order
That's
so I can make you wear?
Ever.
And this is my strength. Fantasy football is my strength more than yours. So let's lean into my strength here. You may beat me in other categories, Sasha, but not this one.
All right.
Not this one. I love it. I see interactions like this. See, this is what Sunday's about, right? People coming over, sitting down in front of the TV, watching football. This is what we like.
I like it.
This is what we like. And that's why I like Tyler Higbee.
Well, I was like, we can't always talk about stuff we like. So I'm going to
go ahead.
Who I hate. Don't like George Kittle this week. Quite often used to block and he wasn't targeted very much last week. So if you're looking to get some reliable points from a tight end, I wouldn't start him this week.
What happened there? What were they doing with him? When you think of somebody that plays tight end that's coming back from injury, especially I think it was the groin injury.
It was, yeah.
Why are you making him go contact to contact almost every play?
I don't know.
You should be trying to put him in non-contact situations.
You would think, but apparently they're not thinking, and that's why I don't really super like him.
Now, he did almost catch a touchdown last week.
Yes, that's true.
And he looked like the George Kittle of old. So I wouldn't overreact too much. I don't hate the hate, but George Kittle is one of those names that it's an automatic starter every week. So keep that in mind, although
if you're looking for points and like a lot of them, that's why I didn't like it this week.
Well, we say names on the show all the time of, you may not think you should ever sit this guy, but it turns out more often than not, we're right. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying you have to follow us to a T, but if you want to have a cup of tea with us sometime, let us know. We'll make sure that you're in good position to win your fantasy leagues. And that's what we do here. That's why we're here. We're doing that for you. Here's who I hate. Dawson Knox, Bills tight end. I like to call him no touchdown Knox. Because will he ever score? Will he ever score? That Bills offense puts up so many points, and Dawson Knox is never on the receiving end of any of those points. He had a season-high 6 targets in week 4, has yet to reach 9 fantasy points this year. Josh Allen just spreads the ball around too much for him to even be a shot-in-the-dark play is the best way to say that. And because of that, he carries the title, touchdown-dependent tight end. And if you don't score touchdowns, well, that's not very enticing to see or to hear. Touchdown-dependent tight end. Well, if you're a touchdown-dependent tight end and you haven't scored a touchdown, then you're not in my lineup.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. I'll find somebody else that is not just a touchdown-dependent tight end, but can do both and get touchdowns and receiving yards or trade for one. Who cares? And speaking of saying goodbye, Sasha has to go, has some Sunday plans, not only just to watch football and make sure her lineup is set, but also be a family individual today, right?
Yes.
Right, go ahead.
Andrew's got you covered.
Yes.
For your
Let's move on to
defense.
Yes. Yeah. Let's move on to defense. I'm not going to talk about kicker all that much, but let's talk about defense. And I'm just going to throw out 2 here. We'll get into your start-sit questions, and then we will. We're running pretty close to noon kickoff, so I'll power through here. So that we can get as many start-sit questions in as we can. My defense that I love, Tennessee. The Commanders have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to defenses. That's 10.25. Washington's 17 sacks allowed are the most in the NFL, and their 5 interceptions allowed are tied for the most. Makes Tennessee a pretty easy play for me this week. They haven't been stellar, but they did put up 10 points against the Colts in week 4. Now, a team that I hate, New England. I do not like their defense. We talked a lot about the Lions and how they throw the ball to be productive, and that hurts defenses more often than not. I think just because of all the numbers that follow the Lions, you don't play New England's defense. They allowed just 4 fantasy points to opposing defenses, which is the 5th fewest in the NFL. Now, play it at your risk. If you want to play New England's defense, go for it. But that is not one that I like. Let's get into some start-sit questions this week. Keep sending those in to @Hurrdat Sports. Here we go. Who should I start? 1 in PPR. Michael Carter, Chase Edmonds, or Rachaad White? Chase Edmonds. Start Chase Edmonds this week. Breece Hall is taking over that Jets backfield. Rachaad White, I don't see him even getting too involved despite Leonard Fournette's lackluster performance last week. Start Chase Edmonds. Half-point PPR. Metcalf, Scary Terry. This one's hard because, Tennessee, as I just said, allows a lot of passing yards, but I'll stick with DK in this one just because of the numbers that he's consistently put up the last 2 weeks. Oh, another one, Terry McLaurin or Brandon Cooks. This one, I will go Terry McLaurin. I will stick with Terry in that one. That's a PPR wide receiver is who he's looking for. Just the matchup is very good for the Commanders there. Dameon Pierce or Jeff Wilson Jr., PPR running back 2. I think Jeff Wilson gets into the end zone this week. But the Panthers are a good defense. Let's lean Damien Pierce just because of how heavy Houston is leaning into the run game. Let's go Damien Pierce here. I like that play too. I really do. I like Antonio Pierce. We'll probably need a touchdown to win my matchup. Antonio Gibson or Brian Robinson. Well, the obvious play here would be Gibson just because he's getting the running back, one numbers. Brian Robinson, I'm not too sure. Did they clear him? I know that he was on he had to be cleared in the next few weeks, but I really just didn't pay attention too close to that because if anything, it's Brian Robinson's first game, so I wouldn't expect him to score. So I would start Antonio Gibson. I'll check on Brian Robinson though really fast. I don't want to do too much research here. So they did activate him, but yeah, he, despite being cleared after one full week of practice, the third round rookie expected to play under 20 snaps. Yeah, there's no way that he's getting into the end zone, in my opinion. Moving on. Standard League, Gabe Davis or Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt against the Chargers. That's not a bad play in a Standard League. Nick Chubb just gets so many more touches. I'm going to go Gabe Davis here. I think Gabe Davis gets into the end zone. Let's go with that play. If David Montgomery does not play in a non-PPR league, Khalil Herbert or George Pickens. Toss up. I think Montgomery's playing anyway, so I'll go George Pickens here. PPR, I need one for the flex. Dameon Pierce, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, or... No, I'm not even going to say his name because I don't think you should start him anyway. The name there was Callaway because Michael Thomas is out. So I'm just going to remove that. Let's go with I want to say Damien. Let's go with Robert Woods. I like Robert Woods. No Treylon Burks this week, so I'm gonna play Robert Woods. It may be an unpopular pick. Dameon Pierce is probably the for sure pick there, but I think I'm gonna go Robert Woods. It's about time that we see him start being the Robert Woods of old, like we did in LA just a few years ago. Another one with the news that Montgomery might be active. Which running back do you start? You start James Conner out of Khalil Herbert and James Conner. That's easy. Who has the bigger day out? Ramondre Stevenson or Chris Godwin? I like Godwin this week. Let's go Chris Godwin. Rashad Penny or Pierce full PPR? Rashad Penny. That one's easy for me. I just look at the numbers he put up last week. I love Rashad Penny. I'm a big Rashad Penny fan. Full PPR, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Olave, or J.K. Dobbins. Wow. Let's go with Olave. If you're going to get those receptions, why not, right? Look at him as a wide receiver 1 in football this week. Few more. Full PPR, Travis Etienne, DJ Moore, or Josh Reynolds if Amon-Ra St. Brown sits. Full PPR. ETN. Let's go ETN this week. I like the matchup for ETN against this Houston defense. Plus, I think he can get a lot of catches out of the backfield. I just don't trust DJ Moore enough to say him instead. 2 more. Pick my flex PPR, Ramondre Stevenson, Kareem Hunt. Let's go Ramondre against Detroit. I like that pick a lot. A lot of Patriots, Lions questions, which is funny to me. Who would you start between these two for my flex spot? Cook, Dalvin Cook, I'm assuming, and Barkley are my RB1, RB2. Yeah, that would be right. Who would you start between these two for my flex spot? Okay. That's easy. Now I'm reading it correctly. I thought you meant you had 2 flex spots, and I'm like, well, you gave me 3 names. Why wouldn't you just, pick 2, or unless you want me to pick 2. Ramondre Stevenson, Jamal Williams, Gabe Davis. I'm starting Jamal Williams this week. No DeAndre Swift. Did I say 2 more? Let's do one last one here. Let's make it a good one. I like this one. I like this one a lot. Standard League. Breece Hall, Rashad Penny, Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson. Let's go Breece Hall. I love me some Breece Hall this week. He may not be the strongest starred play if you actually follow along with that, at least in Yahoo leagues, but that's what I'm feeling. I like Breece Hall. I'm starting him in 2, maybe 3 fantasy lineups, and he is a part of my DFS lineup. So stick with that there. Those are your start sit questions. We are right down to the wire, so I got to close this thing out quickly. As kickoff approaches, keep an eye out on the status of those questionables, the David Montgomerys, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Alvin Kamara, T. Higgins, all of those out there. Just keep in mind, seeing how they do in warmups, check Twitter right now. Go back, see, make sure they are in the lineup. Have a blessed Sunday, and remember, there are many things a man can do with his time, but none are better than this. God bless you, and God bless fantasy football.